People who want to nominate another central planner just so they can defeat Hussein Obama. And gentlemen, I'm going to go through several items here on Mitt Romney. Maybe some of them you haven't heard about. Obviously, when you think of Mitt Romney, most people think of RomneyCare, unfortunately, which would make his nomination to be the front runner or be the flag bearer for the GOP until the election would be a disaster for America and a disaster for the Republican Party. I care more about America than I care for the Republican Party. That's why Mitt Romney should be avoided at all costs. And let's be all the links as per usual underneath there. It's imperative that you check those because I will refer to those. That way I don't have to repeat myself on certain issues. First, let's talk about Mitt Romney would not rule out a VAT tax, a value-added tax. Now, I'm in favor of a consumption tax, but this is a national sales tax that I favor, and it would be transparent. For example, let's say we set it at 9%. You would see it on your receipt. It's not added at different stages in the production of a product or a widget, like a VAT tax is, where the costs that this tax adds from these government mandates is not transparent, so you don't know how much is added and where and exactly how much is added. A national sales tax would be on your receipt. You would see, say you buy $100 worth of goods, $9 is attached to that. You would see that in a receipt. Mitt Romney would not rule out a VAT tax. He doesn't seem like he favors it, but the fact that he doesn't rule it out should be concerning. Let's see, from the Wall Street Journal, Romney, here, quoting from a Wall Street Journal article, Romney said, "Moving to a consumption-based system is something which is very attractive to me philosophically, but I've not been able to sufficiently model it out to jump on board a consumption-based tax. A flat tax, a true flat tax, is also attractive to me. What I like, I like the simplification of a flat tax. I also like removing the distortion in our tax code for certain classes of investment, and the advantage of a flat tax is getting rid of some of these distortions. So far, so good." Since Mr. Romney mentioned a consumption tax, would he rule out a VAT tax? He says he doesn't like the idea of layering a VAT onto the current income tax system, but he adds that philosophically speaking, a VAT might work as a replacement for some part of the tax code, particularly at a corporate level, as Paul Ryan proposed several years ago. What he doesn't do is rule it out. And getting rid of the corporate tax or lowering that and then putting a VAT tax on there, that's not lowering the tax burden, guys. He's just shifting it around. This is ridiculous. Amid such generalities, it's hard not to conclude that the candidate is trying to avoid offering any details that might become a political target. And he all but admits as much. I also happen to recognize, he says, that if you go out with a tax proposal which conforms to your philosophy, but it hasn't been thoroughly analyzed, vetted, put through models, and calculated in detail, that you're gonna get hit by demagogues in the general election. That also seems to explain his refusal to propose cuts in individual tax rates, except for people who make less than $200,000, soak the rich, class warfare, which coincidentally is also Hussein Obama's threshold for defining the rich. Now, Romney ran for president 4 years ago as well. Why can't he have a tax plan, a specific one, in place? And I think the fact, there's a lot of class warfare there. He doesn't want to cut individual tax rates for those who make over $200,000 because they're evil. They're the evil rich, and people, most of them became rich because they convinced other people to voluntarily give them their money. If they're getting rich via government subsidies, I oppose that. Or if they're getting rich by loopholes in the tax code, I oppose that. That's why I want a flat tax with no deductions. And then we can go on to repealing the 16th Amendment and taxing only consumption. So that should be alarming. And Dan Mitchell's also got a good article at the Wall Street Journal where guys like Mitt Romney are greasing the skids for the GOP to capitulate on a VAT tax to the Democrats that should be avoided at all costs. So right there's one nail in the coffin. Mitt Romney is bad news because he's flirting with a VAT tax, and that should scare the hell out of you. Further buttressing my position that Romney is a lot like Obama on taxes, Romney, responding to Newt Gingrich, said his plan in capital gains is to remove capital gains for people at the very highest level of income is different than mine. I'd eliminate capital gains, interest, and dividends for people in middle income. So we have differences of viewpoint on some issues. But the real difference, I believe, is our backgrounds. I spent my life in the private sector. In my view, the place that we could spend our precious tax dollars for a cut is on the middle class that's been most hurt by the Obama economy. That's where I want to eliminate taxes on interest, dividends, and capital gains. Taxes on capital gains and dividends are taxes on growth. It's double taxation. That's already been filtered through a corporate income tax. And as you should know, corporations don't pay income taxes, individuals do. And then they're subjected to an income tax. So taxing capital gains and dividends is double taxation. It's a double whammy. The right capital gains rate and dividend rate should be zero. And the fact that Romney won't embrace that is more proof that this guy is bad news and should be avoided. More evidence against Mitt Romney that this pertains to free trade, tariffs, protectionism, and he will endorse and embrace the Herbert Hoover model. He's to the left of Bill Clinton on this. In his book, No Apology, The Case for American Greatness, page 119, Romney writes that defending, quote, American companies from foreign competition may make good politics, but it is decidedly bad for the nation and our workers. Protectionism stifles productivity, end quote. Yet in a November GOP debate, November 2011, he said concerning an answer to the problem with China, that we should, quote, go before the WTO and bring an action against them, and that will allow us to apply selectively tariffs where we believe they are artificially lowering their prices and killing American jobs. That's anti-dumping legislation, anti-dumping pandering there. He also said on his first day in office, Romney promises an executive order. We don't have enough of those, do we? An executive order, quote, to sanction China for unfair trade practices. The order, quote, directs the Department of Treasury to list China as a currency manipulator in its biannual report and directs the Department of Commerce to assess countervailing duties on Chinese imports if China does not quickly move to float its currency. Float is a code for forcing the yuan higher against the dollar. And I've debunked that thinking elsewhere that forcing China to do that is going to assist us. In 2004, the yuan, the Chinese currency, ended the year 8.28 to the dollar. In 2011, it ended the year 6.31 to the dollar, a 24% rise, which is just what they want. In 2004, Americans' trade deficit with China was $162 billion. In 2011, it was $295 billion. Those demanding a 30% appreciation got most of it, and the trade deficit mushroomed $133 billion. Again, check the links under there. I've already dealt with that in response to McStupid and focusing on Donald Trump because Donald Trump was wanting the same thing, wanting to start this trade war with China and utilizing these sound bites to convince people. And actually, that's one of the stupidest talking points you can come up with. But it sounds good. It makes for good theater, and it's good political theater, and it's populism. But doing that will have negative repercussions. But then again, a lot of people, they'll embrace something just for the sake of embracing it, populism, even if the effects are going to be bad. So Mitt Romney's bad news on that as well. Free trade and wanting to start a trade war with China. It won't work. If you thought Mitt Romney was going to get on board with repealing ObamaCare, think again. Back in April 2010, Romney said this, I hope we're ultimately able to eliminate some of the differences between RomneyCare and ObamaCare and repeal the bad of ObamaCare and keep the good. So as far as full-fledged repeal of it, if the Supreme Court doesn't do it and strike it down, Mitt Romney as president will not endorse, and he will try to get the Republicans to compromise here. And what they're going to do in the process is, it's instead of flushing this turd down the toilet, they're going to pull this turd out and and they're going to put cookie dough around it, and maybe it'll taste better. That's a good analogy, I think. Norm Coleman, former Senator Norm Coleman, an advisor to Romney, went on record saying, "We're not going to do repeal. You're not going to repeal Obamacare." He doesn't want to, that's why. "It's not a total repeal. You will not repeal the act in its entirety, but you will see major changes, particularly if there's a Republican president. You can't whole cloth throw it out, but you can substantially change what's been done." And usually when something like this gets entrenched, like look at the fights we have to have over reforming Social Security and Medicare. If we'd reformed Social Security back when Goldwater wanted to, we wouldn't be in this mess. So this mindset of just trying to tinker with it and reform it slightly, which, I mean, I understand that's what we have to do with Social Security. We can't just throw it out because there's so many people who have been in it for so long and they're stuck in it. But with Obamacare, we can do that. But Mitt Romney as president will not repeal Obamacare. I guarantee it. We also have the issue of free riding in Obamacare, or excuse me, RomneyCare. I'm not doing that on purpose, I promise. Santorum and Romney went back and forth at a recent debate over this, and Santorum accused Romney's health care plan in Massachusetts, of allowing free riding. There are a couple types of free riding. One type happens when government guarantees access to emergency room care. People show up to get care and they don't pay. Another type happens when government guarantees people the ability to purchase health insurance at standard rates. That's called community rating. No matter how sick they are, people wait until they get sick to purchase health insurance, and guaranteed issue provisions are also part of that. People wait until they are sick to purchase health insurance and drop it right after they get the care they needed. These free riders pay far less than they would in a free market, which would not allow such behavior. Romney and factcheck.org assumed Santorum meant the former type of government-induced free riding when he was clearly talking about the latter. The number of people who appear to be gaming Massachusetts' health insurance system by purchasing coverage only when they are sick quadrupled from 2006 to 2008, according to a long-awaited report released recently from the Massachusetts Division of Insurance. The result is that insured residents of Massachusetts wind up paying more for health care, according to the report. The active members subsidize some of the costs tied to those individuals who terminate within 1 year, the report says. The number of people engaging in this phenomenon, dumping their coverage within 6 months, jumped from 3,508 in 2006 when the law was passed to 17,177 in 2008, the most recent year for which data is available. That's more than quadrupled. So Santorum, when he and Romney were going back and forth on RomneyCare and free riding, Santorum was right. It increases the number of free riders, and that's another. Romney tried to defend it there, but he was wrong. This has created more freeloading, and of course Massachusetts healthcare law, RomneyCare, has been over budget every single year. It's a train wreck, as would be expected. It's just a train wreck on a state level, where Obamacare, which Romney's not going to repeal, will be a train wreck on the national level. We also have Romney's inability to find an opinion, the fact that he's given an opinion several times and stick to it concerning global warming. I've already documented once back in a debate in Iowa back in, this is December 2007, the moderator asked each Republican candidate, and Mitt Romney was one of them, raise your hand if you think a man's contributing to anthropogenic global warming, if man is the cause of that. And Romney was one of the candidates that raised his hand. So we have that. And then in December 2005, Massachusetts became the first state at that time to set CO2 emissions limits on power plants. The limits, which target the 6 largest and oldest power plants in the state, this is back when he was governor, are the toughest in the nation. In addition to reaffirming existing stringent CO2 limits, the draft regulations, this is back in December 2005, announced today, which will be filed next week, contain protection against excessive price increases for businesses and consumers. That's a price control. They allow power generation companies to implement CO2 reductions at their own facilities or fund other reduction projects offsite through a greenhouse gas offset and credits program. It's like a Catholic indulgence. And as the commenter in this article pointed out, in other words, the Romney administration in 2005 essentially did what Hussein Obama's EPA wants to do now. Even a Democrat Congress wouldn't get on board with that. Not only did Romney impose these costly new regulations, but then he imposed price caps to keep power companies from passing the costs along to the consumer, which is naturally what's going to happen every time. So what has happened to Massachusetts electrical production since signing these regulations into law? According to the EIA, whose latest data is for 2009, it dropped 18% in 4 years, from over 46 billion megawatt hours to 38 billion. International imports, however, went from 697 million megawatt hours in 2006 to 4.177 billion megawatt hours 2 years later, and to almost 5 billion megawatt hours in 2009, more than twice the amount imported in any of the previous 20 years. So, energy colonialism, anyone? Thank you for that, Mitt. Romney ended up dropping the Massachusetts Climate Protection Plan this back in 2004, and one of his advisors, actually two of them, John Holdren, you may be aware of, one of Hussein Obama's buddies, and a big eco-kook activist right up there with Paul Ehrlich. That's who I was trying to think of. And Philip Foy is another one. Foy doesn't get a mention in the 2005 memo where they implemented these clean air regulations that praises Holdren as a partner in the CO2 regulation, but it's hard to imagine that Foy didn't take part in the regulatory effort. So John Holdren and, Douglas Foy, two big eco-kook wackos, giving advice to Mitt Romney, and John Holdren is probably the nuttiest one of all of them. Then we have Romney tweaking his position again. He says, "My view is that we don't know what's causing climate change on this planet," Romney said in the speech, a clip which was posted by the Marxist blog Think Progress. "And the idea of spending trillions and trillions of dollars to try to reduce CO2 emissions is not the right course for us." Romney gave a different answer back in June when he was asked whether humans contribute to climate change. He said, "I don't speak for the scientific community, of course, but I believe the world's getting warmer. I can't prove that, but I believe based on what I read that the world is getting warmer. And number two, I believe humans contribute to that." So, who knows? His position has evolved slightly, and most of it is bad news, and he's staying true to form. He's taken 12 different positions on everything, including global warming. Romney's views on illegal immigration aren't much better. One of the articles I cite, most of it's spent on a hubbub over Rick Perry and him sparring back and forth whether Romney had illegal aliens working on his property with his knowledge. I'm not interested in that, but Romney's various positions on illegal immigration were closely examined in his previous run for the presidency. A Washington Post fact check in 2007 noted illegal immigration was not a big issue for Romney when he was elected governor of Massachusetts in 2002. He vetoed a proposal to allow the children of illegal immigrants to benefit from in-state tuition rates at local universities and opposed the idea of driver's licenses for illegals. So good there. The Post also noted that Romney, in a November 2005 interview with the Boston Globe, appeared to support the immigration reform advanced by Senator McCain that may have it was amnesty. Romney rejects the characterization that he supported it, while noting on a campaign website that he said provisions in the bill were, quote, reasonable, adding that he explicitly refused to endorse it. However, back in 2006, in a Bloomberg interview, he did say some foreigners who entered the U.S. illegally should be allowed to remain and gain legal status, which is just going to continue the problem we have. I've been over that. See my illegal immigration insanity videos. That's not the way to go about it. We've done amnesty once. We liberalized our immigration laws in the 1960s. It's time for an overhaul. I don't want to end immigration, but we need to limit it, especially in this recession, and expand H-1B visas. But allowing those who come in and knowingly break our laws to stay is just going to want them, they're just going to want to continue to do that. That's not the way to go about it. So Romney's not terrible on illegal immigration, but he's certainly not very good on it either. And this comes from one of Romney's advisors, and you would think something like this would be vetted. Greg Mankiw, who is one of Obama's advisors. He's one of Romney's economic advisors, said this. This is scary. Driving your car is associated with various adverse side effects. These include traffic congestion, forgetting that a lot of that's caused by so-called smart growth regulations. The government creates that atmosphere of traffic congestion. Accidents, local pollution, and global climate change. That sounds globalist. Greenhouse gas emissions in California affect people in British Columbia, Canada. We need a global solution. I'm not saying he's a globalist, but that's a slippery slope. He also says if the tax on gasoline were higher, people would alter their behavior to drive less, unless all they do is basically drive to work already. Economists who have added up all of the externalities associated with driving conclude that a tax exceeding $2 a gallon makes sense. You would think Romney would vet that statement. He needs to come out and say this guy was speaking out of turn. That's scary. That's one of I keep wanting to say Obama. One of Romney's economic advisors, Greg Mankiw. I'm wondering, Romney doesn't take a stand on a lot of issues, and I think he's scared somebody may not like him. Well, while Ohio's collective bargaining reforms were being debated, and there's a big brouhaha going on in Ohio over Governor Kasich's reforms. Personally, I think I would allow public sector workers to collectively bargain for wages, and that's it. They can fund their own pension and all that. Well, Mitt Romney was in Ohio during that brouhaha, and he even stopped by a Republican Party phone bank making calls in support of Governor Kasich's government union reform referendum, but Romney refused to endorse the actual referendum. He spoke, in generalized terms about how he supports Republicans and supports Kasich and blah, 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 but he would not come out and support Governor Kasich's reforms. He wouldn't just come out and say that. He tap danced around it, which is, it's galling. Another reason, if you do know what Mitt Romney's going to do, if you're convinced, it's usually bad. But on so many issues, you don't really know what he's going to do. He refuses to take a stand, and I don't understand why he must have thought it was a hot button issue. So if he's for it, he must have just thought, well, I don't want to do that because I might lose votes. But who wants a populist panderer? I think that's another nail in the coffin, another reason that Mitt Romney should be avoided if you're a Federalist, if you're a Libertarian, Republican, and I'm probably preaching to the choir when I talk to Libertarians when I say Mitt Romney is bad news. I need to mention this quickly as well, and again, check the links under the video. At one time, Mitt Romney called Social Security a criminal enterprise, but when Rick Perry came out and called it a Ponzi scheme, or actually Ron Paul had been calling it that and wanting to reform it long before Rick Perry's views on it became well known, Mitt Romney jumped all over Rick Perry for calling it a Ponzi scheme after he called it a criminal enterprise. And it's apparent from Romney's remarks that we're not going to see any serious reform to Social Security. We're not going to gradually wean it off people. Let younger workers obviously could begin to slowly but surely more of their payroll taxes could be put in a 401k, or they could take it as cash or whatever in general, and just slowly wean everybody off the system. Older workers, those over 40, obviously will still be stuck in the system because they've been in it so long. They don't have enough time to make everything up. And obviously people like my dad who are over 60 and going to retire soon, you can't just throw them under the bus. So it would be a slower reform, but Romney is not going to we're going to continue on the same path we are with Social Security. And you're going to, unless you reform it, you're going to have massive payroll tax hikes and income tax hikes. It's inevitable. Either that or they're just going to throw people under the bus, which we're not going to do. So Social Security needs to be reformed. Mitt Romney will not do that. Excuse my phone ringing. We have Another issue where it's hard to figure out where Romney stands, you have the assault weapons ban he signed while he was governor of Massachusetts, and banning assault. The term assault and assault weapon, it's a loaded term, no pun intended. I've gone over that elsewhere, so I don't have to repeat myself on that. Romney said it is okay to ban lethal weapons that threaten police. Well, that's an ambiguous term. He's just going to dub an assault weapon a lethal weapon that threatens police. Again, I've already refuted that nonsense. Elsewhere, assault weapon bans are, anyone who supports those is certainly anti-Second Amendment. And then, of course, Romney, it was in 2006 he became a lifetime member of the NRA and started slowly moving his way towards the pro-gun side a couple years before he decided to run for president. And again, we have basically another flip-flop there. He's bad news on assault weapons, and he would capitulate to Democrat demands if they had a sizable majority in both chambers. He would capitulate to them if they wanted to reinstate the assault weapons ban, I guarantee you. So Mitt Romney is not a friend of the gun owner. And of course, the National Association of Gun Rights survey, the only two people who completed that survey and got a 100% rating were Michelle Bachmann and Ron Paul. Mitt Romney was not one of those.